Martin, what is this? My voice trembled as I held up the crumpled receipt I found tucked inside his jacket pocket. The date on it was from last weekend, when he claimed to be on a business trip. Martin glanced at the slip of paper and sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. Clara, it's just a receipt. Why are you making a big deal out of it? A big deal? I echoed, my pulse quickening. It's from a hotel, Martin. In a city you weren't supposed to be in. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. You're overreacting. I had to change plans last minute. It's part of my job. I wanted to believe him, but the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. The whispers of doubt had been growing louder for months. Late nights, secretive phone calls, and now this. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Do you think I'm stupid? My voice rose, the anger bubbling to the surface. I've seen the messages, Martin. I know about Gabriella. His face paled, and for a moment I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. But it was quickly replaced by a cold, calculating stare. So you've been snooping around? Don't turn this on me. I snapped, my hands shaking. Who is she, Martin? How long has this been going on? He turned away, his shoulders tense. It doesn't matter, Clara. What's done is done. I felt like the ground was slipping away beneath me. This was the man I'd devoted my life to, the father of my children. And now, he was tearing our family apart with his lies. How could you do this to us? I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. To me. Martin remained silent, his back still turned. The weight of his betrayal pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed a plan. As the days passed, I feigned ignorance, biding my time. I became a detective in my own home, collecting evidence of his deceit. There were trinkets from romantic getaways, love letters hidden in his office drawer, and photos of him with Gabriella, a woman I vaguely remembered from a decade ago. She had been a coworker of Martin's, someone who mysteriously vanished from our social circle. Kate, my loyal and supportive friend, was my confidant through it all. You need to confront him, Clara, she urged one evening over a cup of tea. He can't get away with this. I know, I replied, my voice steady. But I need to be smart about it. I need to gather everything I can before I confront him. Kate nodded, her eyes filled with concern. Just promise me you won't let him break you. You're stronger than this. Her words gave me strength, and I delved deeper into the web of lies Martin had spun. Each new piece of evidence was a dagger to my heart, but it also fueled my determination. I found out about his plot to leave me after securing a promotion at work, a plan that would leave me financially vulnerable after years of supporting him. The day of his promotion arrived, and I was ready. Kate stood by my side as I confronted Martin in our living room, the evidence spread out on the coffee table like a damning puzzle. Martin, I began, my voice unwavering, we need to talk. He looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from annoyance to shock as he saw the evidence laid out before him. Clara, what is this? This, I said, pointing to the photos and letters, is the truth. You've been lying to me, to our family, and I won't stand for it any longer. He tried to deny it at first, but the weight of the evidence was undeniable. Finally, he admitted it. I've fallen out of love with you, Clara. I've been planning to leave you for Gabriella. The words cut deep, but they also set me free. Then it's over, I declared. I'm done being your fool. We're getting a divorce. As I walked out of the room, Kate squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, Clara. Now, it's time to rebuild your life. And with that, I took the first step on my journey of resilience and revenge, determined to reclaim my life and find happiness once more. Feigning ignorance wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Every day, I played the role of the unsuspecting wife, all the while collecting pieces of Martin's betrayal. The house felt like a stage, and I was the lead in a tragic play, knowing the curtain would soon fall. One evening, while Martin was in the shower, I rummaged through his office. My hands shook as I opened his desk drawer, praying I wouldn't get caught. There, among the usual clutter, I found a small velvet box. My heart pounded as I lifted the lid to reveal an elegant bracelet, something I'd never seen before. It was delicate and beautiful, clearly chosen with care. This wasn't for me. I snapped a photo of it with my phone and quickly replaced the box. My mind raced. How many more secrets was he hiding? I needed more evidence, something concrete that would leave no room for his lies. Days later, I found what I was looking for. Tucked inside one of his old briefcases were love letters from Gabriella. Each one was a dagger to my heart, filled with sweet nothings and promises of a future together. I read them all, my anger growing with every word. This was the bitter reality of his deceit. That night, I called Kate. I found the letters. I whispered, my voice trembling. "Oh, Clara," she said softly. "I'm so sorry. I need to confront him, but I want to be smart about it. I need to know everything. Do you think he's planning something?" Kate asked, concern lacing her voice. "I don't know, but I have a feeling there's more to this. I need to dig deeper." Kate was silent for a moment. "You know I'm here for you, whatever you need." "Thank you, Kate. I don't know what I'd do without you." The next day, I decided to follow Martin. He'd mentioned a dinner meeting with a client, but I wasn't buying it. I trailed behind him, my heart pounding in my chest. He drove to a quaint little restaurant on the outskirts of town, the kind of place we used to go to when we were first married. I watched from a distance as he walked inside, my stomach in knots. A few minutes later, Gabriella arrived. She looked just as I remembered, young, vibrant, and completely unaware of the chaos she was causing in my life. I snapped photos of them together, my hands shaking. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. I had everything I needed to confront him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in my mind. How had we gotten here? What had I done to deserve this? But those thoughts were quickly replaced by a burning desire for justice. He couldn't get away with this. Not after everything we'd been through. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, the evidence spread out before me. The bracelet, the letters, the photos. It was time. I couldn't wait any longer. "Martin," I called out as he came down the stairs. "We need to talk." He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "What is it now, Clara?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I know about Gabriella. I know everything." His face paled, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. But he quickly composed himself. "Clara, you're being ridiculous." "Am I?" I said, holding up the letters. "I found these. And the bracelet. And I saw you with her last night." His jaw clenched, and he took a step closer. "You've been spying on me? Don't turn this on me," I snapped. "You've been lying to me, to our family. How long has this been going on?" He remained silent, his eyes cold and distant. "Answer me," I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. "Fine," he said finally. "It's been years. I'm in love with her, Clara. And I'm leaving you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I refused to let him see me break. "You think you can just walk away? After everything I've done for you?" "I've made up my mind," he said, his voice cold and final. "Then you'll be hearing from my lawyer," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done being your fool." As he turned to leave, I felt a surge of determination. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I was going to make sure he paid for every lie, every betrayal. And with Kate by my side, I knew I could do it. After the confrontation with Martin, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The truth was out, but the battle had just begun. As I sat alone in the quiet house, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. I needed to understand how deep Martin's betrayal went, and that meant revisiting the past. Gabriella. The name echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. She had been a part of our lives once, a coworker of Martin's who disappeared from our social circle about a decade ago. Now she was back, and the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together. That evening, I called Kate. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice tinged with urgency. "Come over," she replied without hesitation. When I arrived at Kate's house, she greeted me with a warm hug. "What's going on, Clara?" "I've been thinking about Gabriella." I began, sitting down on her couch, Do you remember her? She used to work with Martin. Kate nodded slowly. Yes, I remember. She was always so friendly. What about her? She vanished from our lives so suddenly, I continued. And now she's back, involved with Martin. It can't be a coincidence. Kate's eyes widened. You think something happened back then? I don't know, I admitted. But I need to find out. There's more to this than just an affair. Kate leaned forward, her expression serious. What do you need me to do? Help me dig into Gabriella's past, I said. Maybe there's something there that can help us understand what's really going on. Over the next few days, Kate and I became amateur detectives, scouring social media and old contacts for any information about Gabriella. We discovered she had left her job abruptly and moved out of state. There were rumors of a scandal, but nothing concrete. It was frustrating, but we were determined. Then, one afternoon, I received a call from an old friend who used to work with Martin and Gabriella. I heard you're looking for information about Gabriella, she said cautiously. Yes, I replied, my heart racing. Do you know anything? There were rumors, she began, her voice low. Gabriella was involved with someone at work. It caused quite a stir, and she left shortly after. Do you know who she was involved with? I asked, already suspecting the answer. There was a pause. I can't say for sure, but people suspected it was Martin. I closed my eyes, the pieces falling into place. Thank you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. After hanging up, I called Kate. We need to talk, I said. I've found something. We met at a quiet cafe, and I relayed the conversation to her. It makes sense, she said, her brow furrowed. But why did she come back now? I don't know, I admitted, but I'm going to find out. That evening, I decided to confront Martin again. He was in his office, typing away on his laptop. We need to talk, I said, my voice firm. He looked up, annoyance flickering across his face. What now, Clara? I spoke to someone who used to work with you and Gabriella, I said, watching his reaction closely. They told me about the rumors. His face paled, and he stood up abruptly. You've been digging into the past? What's the point? The point is, I need to understand why she's back, I said, my anger simmering. What happened back then? Martin's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. It doesn't matter, he said finally. It was a long time ago. But it does matter, I insisted, because it's affecting our lives now. He took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping. Fine. Gabriella and I had an affair back then. It ended badly and she left. I thought it was over. Clearly it wasn't, I said, my voice trembling. Why did she come back? I don't know, he admitted, his voice hollow. She reached out to me a few months ago, said she wanted to reconnect. And you just fell back into it? I asked, disbelief coloring my tone. Martin looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I was weak. I'm sorry, Clara. Sorry wasn't enough. Not anymore. This isn't over, I said, my voice steely. I'm going to find out the truth, and you're going to pay for what you've done. As I walked out of the room, I felt a surge of determination. The past was catching up to us, and I was going to uncover every secret, no matter the cost. The days following my confrontation with Martin were a blur of anger and determination. I couldn't let him get away with his betrayal, not after everything I'd sacrificed for our marriage. But the more I dug, the more I realized how deep his deceit ran. One evening, while sorting through old financial records, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. There were large sums of money being transferred from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize. The dates coincided with Martin's so-called business trips. My hands shook as I printed out the statements. This wasn't just an affair. He was siphoning our money to fund his new life with Gabriella. I called Kate immediately. You need to come over, I said, my voice barely steady. She arrived within minutes, her face etched with concern. What's wrong, Clara? I handed her the statements. Look at this. He's been draining our accounts. Kate's eyes widened as she scanned the documents. This is serious. You need to confront him about this. I will, I said, my resolve hardening. But I need to be smart about it. I need to protect myself. Kate nodded. You should talk to a lawyer. Make sure you know your rights before you confront him. The next day, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Sitting in her office, I laid out everything I'd discovered. She listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each piece of evidence. You have a strong case, she said finally, but you need to act quickly. If he's planning to leave, he might try to take more money or assets with him. I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. What do I need to do? First, we need to freeze the accounts, she said. That will prevent him from taking any more money. Then, we'll file for divorce and request a temporary restraining order to keep him from accessing any joint assets. It was a lot to take in, but I knew it was necessary. Let's do it, I said, my voice steady. That evening, I returned home, my mind racing with plans and strategies. I needed to confront Martin, but I also needed to protect myself. As I sat in the living room, the front door opened, and Martin walked in. He looked tired, but there was a smugness in his eyes that made my blood boil. We need to talk, I said, standing up. He sighed, rolling his eyes. What now, Clara? I held up the financial statements. Care to explain these? His face paled, and he snatched the papers from my hand. Where did you get these? It doesn't matter, I said, my voice cold. What matters is that you've been stealing from our accounts. Martin's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. Oh, really? I said, my anger bubbling to the surface. Then explain it to me. Explain why you've been draining our money. He took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping. I needed the money for Gabriella. She's been going through a tough time. A tough time? I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. You're destroying our lives for her? I didn't have a choice, he said, his voice hollow. She needed help. And what about me? I demanded. What about our family? Martin looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Clara. I never meant for it to go this far. Sorry isn't enough, I said, my voice trembling with rage. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The accounts are frozen, and I'm filing for divorce. His head snapped up, shock and fear in his eyes. You can't do this. I can and I will, I said, my resolve unshakable. You've left me no choice. As I walked out of the room, I felt a surge of empowerment. This was just the beginning. I was going to rebuild my life, no matter what it took. The next morning, I received a call from my lawyer. We've filed the paperwork, she said. But there's something you need to know. Martin has been planning to move all your shared assets to an offshore account. We need to act fast to prevent it. My heart raced. What do I need to do? Meet me at the bank, she said. We'll need your authorization to secure everything. I hung up, my mind spinning. This was it, the final showdown. I grabbed my keys and headed to the bank, determination fueling every step. Martin had underestimated me, but he was about to learn just how strong I could be. The bank's sterile environment did nothing to calm my nerves. I sat across from my lawyer, a stern woman named Ms. Reed, as she explained the next steps. We need to act quickly to secure your assets, she said, her voice firm. I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. Let's do it. Ms. Reed signaled the bank manager, who began the process of freezing the accounts and transferring the necessary funds to a secure account in my name. I watched as numbers and figures flashed on the screen, each one representing a piece of my future that Martin had tried to steal. When we were done, Ms. Reed turned to me. You've done the right thing, Clara. This will protect you and ensure he can't take anything more. Thank you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. The weight of what I'd just done settled heavily on my shoulders, but it was a necessary burden. As I left the bank, my phone buzzed. It was Kate. How did it go? She asked. We secured the accounts, I said, relief mingling with exhaustion. But there's something else. Martin was planning to move everything to an offshore account. Kate's gasp echoed through the phone. That's serious, Clara. What are you going to do? I need to confront him, I said, my resolve hardening. But first, I need to talk to Gabriella. She's a part of this, whether she likes it or not. Do you want me to come with you? Kate offered, her voice filled with concern. No, I said, taking a deep breath. I need to do this alone. Later that day, I drove to Gabriella's house, my mind racing with thoughts of what I would say. When I arrived, I took a moment to steady myself before knocking on the door. Gabriella opened it, her face a mask of surprise. Clara, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She hesitated but stepped aside to let me in. The house was tastefully decorated, a stark contrast to the chaos in my heart. I followed her to the living room, where we sat down facing each other. What is this about? She asked, her voice wary. I know about you and Martin, I said, watching her reaction closely. And I know about the money. Her eyes widened and she looked away, guilt evident on her face. I didn't want it to be like this, she said softly. Then why did you come back? I demanded, my anger bubbling to the surface. Why now, after all these years? Gabriella took a deep breath, her hands trembling. I made a mistake back then. I thought I could move on, but I couldn't. I reached out to Martin because I wanted to make things right. Make things right? I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. You've destroyed my life, Gabriella. How is that making things right? Tears welled up in her eyes. I'm sorry, Clara. I never meant to hurt you. Sorry isn't enough, I said, my voice trembling with rage. You've been complicit in his deceit, and now you need to face the consequences. Gabriella looked down, her shoulders slumping. What do you want me to do? Tell me everything, I demanded. Every detail. I need to know what I'm up against. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Martin and I started seeing each other again a few months ago. He promised me a future. Said he would leave you once he secured his promotion. The money was supposed to be for us, to start a new life. And you believed him? I asked, incredulous. I wanted to, she admitted. But now I see he was just using me. I took a deep breath, the pieces of the puzzle finally coming together. Thank you for being honest, I said, standing up. But this isn't over. You need to be prepared for what's coming. As I left her house, I felt a surge of determination. Martin had underestimated both of us, but now we were united in our resolve to bring him down. When I got home, I found Martin waiting for me, his face a mask of anger. What have you done? He demanded, holding up the bank statements. I've protected myself, I said, my voice steady. And I've spoken to Gabriella. She's ready to testify against you. His face twisted with rage. You think you can take me down? You're nothing without me, Clara. Maybe, I said, my voice calm. But I'm stronger than you think. And I'm not alone. As he stormed out of the house, I felt a newfound sense of empowerment. This was just the beginning. I was ready to fight for my future, no matter what it took. The day of Martin's promotion dawned with a heavy sense of foreboding. I knew this was the moment everything would come to a head. As I prepared, I felt a mix of fear and determination. Today, I would confront Martin with everything I had, and there would be no turning back. Kate arrived early, her presence a comforting anchor. Are you ready? She asked, her eyes filled with concern and support. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, taking a deep breath. Let's do this. We drove to Martin's office, my heart pounding with each passing mile. The promotion ceremony was in full swing when we arrived, the room filled with colleagues and well-wishers. Martin stood at the front, basking in the applause, his smile wide and confident. It made my blood boil. As the applause died down, I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the silence. Martin, we need to talk. He looked up, surprise and annoyance flickering across his face. Clara, what are you doing here? I'm here to tell the truth, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I held up the evidence I'd gathered, the photos, the letters, the financial statements. You've been lying to everyone, Martin. About your affair, about the money, about everything. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as I laid out the evidence. Martin's face paled, and he took a step back, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "This is ridiculous," he said, his voice shaking. "You're making a scene, Clara." "No, Martin," I replied, my voice rising. "You made this scene the moment you decided to betray me and our family. You've been living a lie, and it's time everyone knows the truth." The room fell silent, all eyes on Martin. He looked around, desperation and anger etched on his face. "You don't understand," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. "I had no choice." "There's always a choice," I said, my voice cold. "And you chose to betray me." As I turned to leave, Kate by my side, I felt a surge of empowerment. I had done it. I had exposed him for what he was. But as we walked out of the office, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Gabriella. "Clara, we need to talk. It's urgent." My heart raced as I read the message. "Kate, we need to go to Gabriella's." "What's going on?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "I don't know, but it sounds serious," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. We arrived at Gabriella's house, and she opened the door with a look of desperation. "Clara, thank God you're here," she said, her voice trembling. "There's something you need to know." "What is it?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Martin's been planning something," she said, her eyes wide with fear. "He's been talking about taking drastic measures if things didn't go his way." "What do you mean?" I asked, a sense of dread settling in. "He mentioned something about the offshore accounts," she said, her voice shaking. "He said if he couldn't have the money, no one could." My blood ran cold. "We need to stop him," I said, my voice urgent. "He could do something reckless." We rushed back to the office, my mind racing with thoughts of what Martin might be planning. When we arrived, the building was in chaos. People were shouting, and security guards were rushing towards the elevators. "What's going on?" I asked one of the guards. "Mr. Baxter locked himself in his office," the guard replied, his face pale. "He's threatening to destroy everything." My heart pounded as I pushed my way through the crowd, Kate and Gabriella close behind. When we reached Martin's office, I could hear him shouting inside, his voice filled with anger and desperation. "Martin, open the door," I shouted, banging on the door. "This isn't the way to handle this." "Stay back, Clara," he shouted, his voice shaking. "I won't let you take everything from me." "Martin, please," I said, my voice breaking. "Think about what you're doing. This isn't just about you. It's about our family, our future." There was a long silence, and I held my breath, praying he would listen. Finally, the door creaked open, and Martin stood there, his face a mask of anguish. "I don't know what to do," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I've lost everything." "You haven't lost everything," I said, stepping forward. "But you need to stop this. It's not too late to make things right." As he looked at me, I saw the flicker of the man I once loved, buried beneath the layers of deceit and betrayal. This was the moment that would define our future, and I knew I had to reach him before it was too late. Martin stood in the doorway of his office, his face a mixture of despair and anger. The tension in the air was palpable, and I knew that this moment would define the rest of our lives. I took a step forward, my heart pounding. "Martin, you need to stop this," I pleaded, my voice steady but urgent. "This isn't just about you. Think about our children, our family." He shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. "I've ruined everything, Clara. I don't know how to fix it. You can start by letting go of this madness," I said, reaching out to him. "We can figure this out, but you need to stop." He looked at me, the anguish in his eyes almost too much to bear. Slowly, he stepped aside, allowing me to enter the office. The room was in disarray, papers strewn everywhere, and his computer screen flashing ominously. "What were you planning to do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I was going to transfer everything to the offshore account," he admitted, his voice hollow. "I thought if I couldn't have it, no one could." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "It's not too late, Martin. We can still fix this." Just then, Kate and Gabriella entered the room, their faces filled with concern. Gabriella looked at Martin, her eyes pleading. "Martin, please. Listen to Clara. This isn't the way." He looked at her, his expression softening for a moment before hardening again. "You don't understand. I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my family." "You haven't lost everything," Kate said, stepping forward. "But you will if you don't stop this now." Martin's shoulders slumped, and he sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "What have I done?" I knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've made mistakes, Martin, but we can still fix this. We need to work together." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm so sorry, Clara. I never meant for it to go this far." "I know," I said softly, "but now we need to make things right." Together, we began to undo the damage. Martin showed me how to reverse the transfers he had initiated, and with Gabriella's help, we contacted the bank to secure our accounts. It was a painstaking process, but slowly we began to regain control. As we worked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of bittersweet relief. This was the man I had fallen in love with, buried beneath layers of deceit and betrayal. But the road to forgiveness was long, and I wasn't sure if we could ever fully repair the damage. Hours later, we finally finished securing the accounts. Martin looked exhausted, his face lined with worry and regret. "What now?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Now we face the consequences," I said, my voice firm. "We'll deal with the fallout together, but you need to take responsibility for what you've done." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I will, Clara. I promise." As we left the office, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was ending, but a new one was beginning. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had the strength to face it. Back at home, I sat down with Kate and Gabriella, the weight of the day settling heavily on my shoulders. "Thank you," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you." "We're here for you, Clara," Kate said, squeezing my hand. "No matter what," Gabriella nodded, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm so sorry for everything, Clara. I never meant to cause this much pain." "I know," I said softly, "but now we need to move forward." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my lawyer. "Clara, we need to meet. There are new developments regarding the divorce proceedings." My heart sank. I had hoped that securing the accounts would be the end of the crisis, but it seemed there was more to come. "I need to go," I said, standing up. "There's still more to deal with." As I left the house, I felt a renewed sense of determination. This wasn't over, but I was ready to face whatever came next. Everything was at stake, but I knew I had the strength to see it through to the end.